All right, so if you watch my videos, you may know a few things about me, especially what I love. I love the Muppets. I love astrology. I love animals, fictitious and real. And something you may not know that I love is the Olympics. I am a giant super fan nerd of the Olympics. And this video is about looking at the chart of the first Olympic Games, which was in Greece, Athens, 1896, and I found a chart that has a B ranking in Astro Databank. So I'm not going to focus super hard on the rising sign or the house placements. I'm going to focus on the planet's dignity and kind of planets that jumped out. Now, I should say, a disclaimer, I am coming at this as a super fan, meaning my subjective view of the Olympics is wholly positive and I absolutely love it. That being said, the Olympics has its fair share of corruption and stories that probably left people, as athletes and loved ones of athletes, kind of bitter or jaded, and for good reason. So I have only had positive interactions with the Olympics. So that does shade how I view this. However, there are things that are undisputable in this chart that kind of speak to other points of views or experiences of the Olympic Games. And I'll get to that. Now, before I looked at the chart, I kind of thought, what planets do I think of when I think of the Olympics? So this is before I looked at the chart, before I saw any of the placements. The first thing that came to mind was Neptune. And when you think Olympic dream, that's Neptune, baby. Neptune is about the dream. Not all dreams are realized. Not all dreams, have any direct involvement in our everyday life. But this is the Olympic dream. This is both a dream of the organizers. I think of like Neptune as like this dream, and also Neptune representing no boundaries and no borders. This borderless, boundaryless space where everyone comes together. And my God, that's the Olympics. So I thought, okay, Neptune's got to play a role in this chart. And I also thought you need some strong benefics. You need benefics that are working together. You need Jupiter and Venus. You're pulling off a massive event, bringing the world together, Jupiter. And you wanted everyone to harmonize and be on good terms with each other, and for there to be a certain amount of artistry to these games, Venus. So I thought, okay, I imagine a strong Jupiter for sure, and then a strong Venus in this chart, based on sign and rulership and essential dignity. So I also thought, okay, you gotta have Mars. You gotta have grit and determination to pull these games off, to organize it, to put the energy into it, and then also as the athlete competing in the games. And then as far as keeping track of scoring, data, the organizational and planning component, Mercury. You have to have a competent Mercury. Those were the things that jumped out at me before I looked at the chart. So I'm gonna pull up the chart and we're gonna look at it. This is a longer video than I normally do. If you're not super into the Olympics, this may not be for you, but if you are even a minor super fan, you might really enjoy this. All right, so let's look at the chart. Boom, Neptune. Now, Neptune, Pluto, pretty close together in Gemini. I did not see this coming, but it makes total sense to have the dream, Neptune, and then Pluto, the underbelly of that dream. And that, I think, can speak to the corruption, the unfairness, the athletes and loved ones of athletes that have been, I don't want to say victimized, but maybe wrongly, not given credit or unfairly discredited, or, not able to win a medal because of someone who cheated and got away with it. So I think that Pluto makes a lot of sense with Neptune. So yes, we bring everyone together, but then there's also with Pluto there, it intensifies who's in the games, who's out of the games. It's there's countries that sometimes are not in the games. And so, I don't know, Pluto kind of makes me think of that. But I also think of a regeneration of the dream. This is something that at the time of the Renaissance, they were really into Greek culture, and they're like, how can we bring this great tradition back? How can we regenerate this tradition? I think the regenerative aspect of Pluto ties into the big dream of Neptune, of bringing everyone together and of having this like unity, and being able to restore and reimagine this giant global event. So, okay, benefics, Jupiter and Venus, good shape. They're both exalted. We have Venus in Pisces, and then Jupiter at the last degree of Cancer, which is also, the last degree is considered the anaretic or critical degree and has a very much a punctuation. It is interesting, it's the last degree, which typically is like a closing off, but still I think just having Jupiter in Cancer, Venus in Pisces, and those two signs in a trine based on a whole sign aspect is really special. When you think about exalted planets, they're not at their strongest like they are when they're in their home sign, but they are able to function extremely well because they're given tasks to do that they're extremely well suited for. And I feel like they are less likely to go kind of overboard, as sometimes when they're in their home sign, they can kind of trend towards excess or going too far, too strong. So it's like a very, as my teacher always said, refined showing up of that planet in that sign. So yeah, Venus, Jupiter working together to pull off this massive event and to bring nations together who may have had diplomatic strains previously, to healing diplomatic wounds. Because, that's my thing about the Olympics that I absolutely love. Brings countries, people together that normally would never have anything to do with each other. And that's, I think, huge with the Neptune influence and just this idea of like, look what happens when we all come together, and yes, we're competing, and yes, we have our individual aims, but the unity of the games. Oh, okay. So I also want to talk about Mars. It is co-present with the moon. The moon had just entered Aquarius, and Mars is towards the end of Aquarius. So Mars moon together, definitely like the emotional energy it takes to put on the games, and maybe emotional conflict also. But Mars trining the Neptune Pluto seems to help it. It's a separation, but it seems to like help that, like those dreams come to life, those to actualize those, to put the energy into that. And then Mars is also sextiling an exalted sun. So again, another exalted planet, sun in Aries, Mercury in Aries, which when I talked about Mercury being scores, data, planning for the events, that's a really good Mercury placement, just because, it doesn't have essential dignity, but Mercury in Aries is really good. Mercury in Aries is going really great at like spitting out the facts fast and giving you a point A to point B. And like, it's kind of a no frills, direct, to the point Mercury, which I think is perfect for the games. All right, so that's
Okay, so when I recorded this, I wasn't looking at the chart, I was going off memory, and I totally spaced on the Mars-Uranus square and the just Mars-Saturn vibe going down there. So when we have Mars square Uranus, this is going to push innovation big time. This is going to be a pressure to continually expand, innovate, and Saturn Uranus is going to expand the structures of the game, the size, the scope. And I think you see that in the opening ceremonies, just how much these games push innovation, push boundaries, and push what each country can do. Okay.
just a little bit. There is the Mars-Saturn sign-based square, and I think that type of grit and determination is what you need to pull off the games. This is the sunny side descriptor of a Mars-Saturn square, which is really intense, as it's the two malefics at odds, in tension with one another. But as someone natally who has Mars Saturn, the challenge is you could constantly feel frustration with blocks and obstacles. But on the other side, it can, gives you that steely confidence to overcome and like endure and break through obstacles that are in your way. You can get very comfortable with tension and with being super under pressure. And when you think about Olympians, they are under more pressure than anyone else. So I do think that Mars Saturn's interested. It also speaks to, I think, the logistical structural planning and the challenges and the things that flare up as far as like planning the games, and the governing bodies. I think that's another where you can see the shadowy side of maybe conflict and abuse of power sometimes with the IOC and other governing bodies. But by all accounts, the first Olympics, I think, was a huge success. I didn't read anything that was challenging about it, or gave it a reputation of being like a disastrous event. It was actually a really successful one. Thank you for hanging out with me during this Olympics talk. Again, it's one of the things I love most in this world. So I will talk to you later. Bye.